Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. I'm really excited to bring you today's video. If you enjoy my content, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications. Let's get started. Chris Kyle was born on April 8, 1974, in Midlothian, Texas. His family, who were farmers, lived by traditional American values. From a young age, Kyle was introduced to firearms. His father was the first person to teach him marksmanship, and this became one of the first significant steps in Kyle's life. As a child, his relationship with firearms deepened as he went hunting with his family. His ability to focus on targets and make precise shots gave him a great talent for shooting from an early age. Young Chris Kyle exhibited a sporting personality and excelled in school, but he made his career decision at a very young age. Those around him noticed his interest and skill in shooting. However, Kyle had a much bigger ambition: to join the U.S. Navy, the world's most elite military unit, and participate in combat. At the age of 18, Chris Kyle decided to join the U.S. Navy, primarily driven by the military values and disciplined lifestyle he admired since childhood. This decision would fundamentally change his life and impose significant responsibilities on him. However, achieving this goal would not be easy. Kyle had set his sights on becoming a member of the SEALs, Sea, Air, and Land Teams, a unit known for providing some of the toughest military training in the world, requiring immense physical and psychological endurance. Kyle initially struggled with the physical tests, but never gave up. He knew how big his goal was, and each day he pushed himself harder to reach it. Although there were moments of failure, he returned each time, stronger and more determined. Eventually, he overcame all the challenges and completed the SEAL training. This process was the most important experience that shaped his character and turned him into the legendary figure he became. In 1999, Chris Kyle was finally accepted into the SEAL teams. The SEAL training tested the physical endurance, psychological toughness, and strategic thinking abilities of its candidates. This training was extremely demanding, both physically and mentally. All SEAL candidates had to be ready to risk their lives, not only for their own survival, but for the survival of their teammates. Chris Kyle stood out as one of the top students in SEAL training. His greatest skill, marksmanship, became evident during this time. He demonstrated tremendous success by making precise shots at small targets. This laid the foundation for his later performance as a top sniper. During the training, Kyle also emphasized teamwork, discipline, and leadership skills. Each day he grew stronger and more determined as a soldier. Understanding the challenges of joining the SEALs, Kyle realized how valuable an asset he had become as a soldier. After successfully completing the training, Kyle joined the U.S. Navy SEALs in 1999. This marked a critical turning point in his life. By joining the SEALs, Chris Kyle would work alongside the world's most elite soldiers and fight in the harshest conditions, fighting for survival. Once he joined the SEALs, Kyle quickly drew attention. One of the qualities that set him apart from many SEAL soldiers was his calmness. He could handle the immense stress on the battlefield and excelled in difficult missions. His greatest talent was marksmanship. He could make precise shots from very long distances, consistently making the right decisions and achieving significant successes. In his first years in the SEALs, Kyle participated in numerous special operations missions, with his successes rapidly increasing. However, his most important test came in 2003 during the Iraq War. This war would present him with the first major opportunity to become known globally as a sniper. Chris Kyle's life began as a journey starting in a small town with an interest in shooting. Joining the U.S. Navy would not only make him a great soldier, but also transform him into a hero, a name that would go down in history. The Iraq War erupted in 2003, when the United States launched a military intervention against then Iraqi leader Saddam Hussein. This war led to a complex series of global conflicts and dramatically altered the balance in the region. Chris Kyle, ready, equipped, and determined, was sent to Iraq to serve as a sniper. This would become one of the greatest tests of his life, a war that would challenge all his skills, determination, and strategic intelligence. When the Iraq War began, Kyle and his SEAL unit were quickly assigned to operations. In the early months of 2003, Conflicts began to intensify in cities like Baria and Fallujah, some of the most volatile areas of the war. Kyle soon became involved in the regional conflicts, and as the SEAL team's sniper, he developed an extremely effective defense and attack strategy against enemy forces. Famous for his marksmanship, Kyle quickly began proving himself in one of the war's most dangerous regions. In his first missions, he positioned himself at strategic points to ensure the safety of American soldiers. Kyle's task was not only to focus on the heart of the battle and neutralize enemy elements, but also to protect the lives of the American soldiers in the area, keeping them away from danger. This responsibility required not only courage and shooting ability, but also exceptional strategic thinking. During his early deployment to Iraq, Kyle's skills quickly became apparent. He was particularly known for conducting effective operations behind enemy lines as a sniper. In the midst of battle, hitting enemy targets with a single shot demonstrated just how developed Kyle's skills had become. In many missions, he was able to hit a designated target in just a few seconds, showing how fast and precise a sniper he was. Thanks to his excellent sniper abilities, Kyle could infiltrate behind enemy lines, eliminating threats around American soldiers without directly engaging in combat. This was a huge advantage, as snipers not only focus on long-range targets but also control the enemy's positions, psychologically pressuring them. Kyle's goal was always clear: to ensure the survival of American soldiers. The first few weeks in Iraq were marked by direct confrontations with the enemy and the psychological warfare of the battlefield. As the intensity of the fighting increased, Kyle's missions grew even more critical. Each shot not only neutralized enemy forces, but also protected the safety of other American soldiers. During this period, Kyle's skills were demonstrated, not just as a sniper but also as a strategist. As a top-tier sniper, Kyle made the most of every opportunity to confront the enemy. Especially during manhunt missions, he had to track enemy targets. On such missions, a sniper usually has very little visibility and must eliminate enemies with long-range shots. Kyle's success in these missions caught the attention of many. Even in the most difficult moments of the war, he remained determined and never missed his target. Many times, when the enemy realized Kyle's presence, they tried to launch a counterattack, but each time, these attacks failed. The enemy was defenseless against his swift and effective shots. Kyle would wait unnoticed far behind enemy lines, quickly make a few effective shots, and then withdraw. These types of operations not only provided great confidence to American soldiers, but also instilled fear in the enemy forces. Kyle quickly became famous on the battlefield and soon earned the nickname Legend. With his flawless marksmanship and sharp intelligence, he became a respected figure not just within the SEAL team, but across the entire U.S. military. His long-range shots and operations behind enemy lines would ensure that he would be remembered as a legend. During his early missions in Iraq, Kyle faced not only enemies but also the challenges of war itself. His role as a sniper brought him not only physical, but also emotional burdens. The violence of the war, with each shot resulting in the loss of a life and the deep impact it had on humanity, made Kyle stronger in some ways while also introducing him to the dark side of war. Yet, he was determined to overcome every challenge for the profession he loved. The successes he achieved in the early years of the Iraq War led to Kyle being recognized not only as a military strategist, but also as a hero who made great sacrifices for humanity. These missions were the first steps of a journey that would shape the rest of his life and secure his place in history as a legendary sniper. From his early missions in the Iraq War, Kyle quickly began to make a name for himself, and soon he was known among all the soldiers involved in the war as the Legend. This title symbolized not only his extraordinary skills as a sniper, but also his courage in the face of war's challenges, his strategic intelligence, and his sensitive approach to human life. During the war's most intense periods, what made Kyle's name known were not only countless successful shots, but also his ability to penetrate enemy lines and carry out operations safely within them. From the beginning of the conflicts in Iraq, Kyle's extraordinary sniper abilities were noticed. For him, Each mission was in a sense equivalent to a fight for survival. Enemy soldiers often found themselves in great danger, but thanks to Chris Kyle's shots, many were neutralized before they could react. His targets were sometimes kilometers away, and each shot saved a life. These major successes gradually began to present him as a hero. Kyle, with his superior abilities in the face of the war's difficulties, managed to stay calm and composed even during the most critical moments. As a sniper, he stood out for hitting a target within a few seconds, neutralizing the enemy or buying time for soldiers. With each mission, he disrupted the enemy's plans and ensured the safety of American soldiers. These kinds of successes were key factors in turning him into a legend. Often, the primary mission of a SEAL unit was not to eliminate the enemy directly, but to protect the lives of American soldiers. However, Kyle performed such strategic maneuvers behind enemy lines that every bullet he fired could change the course of the battle. These perfect shots were one of the elements that elevated Kyle's abilities to their peak. Throughout his time as a sniper, Chris Kyle focused on his targets with great precision. Sometimes a single bullet would ensure a target's survival, while at other times several shots would be required to neutralize the enemy's weapons. When Kyle hit enemy targets, he didn't just destroy a target, he also collapsed all the operations surrounding it. Every successful shot created great panic behind enemy lines. As a result, Kyle not only provided security to soldiers but also gained a strategic advantage. The successes Kyle achieved as a sniper also made him effective in psychological warfare. His name instilled fear among enemy soldiers. The enemies lived under constant threat, not knowing when a shot would be fired or when they would be hit. Another key factor in Kyle being known as the legend was this: when enemies heard his name, they became fearful. Every corner, every open space became a threat. During his missions, Chris Kyle was not only recognized as a sniper but also as a strategic leader. In many moments of the war, his courage and intelligence in preventing enemy attacks earned him great fame. No matter how far his targets were, he always managed to make the right shot at the right time. These extraordinary abilities, combined with his calm demeanor in battle, set him apart from other soldiers, and he quickly became known as the legend. Kyle not only broke the enemy's morale with just a few shots, but he also made moves that thwarted their entire strategies. Many times, large attacks by the enemy failed due to his excellent marksmanship. For example, Kyle targeted a vehicle from a long distance, disrupting the enemy's plans and preventing an assault by a group of enemy soldiers. These kinds of strategic moves made him one of the most important figures in the war. Kyle's legendary status was not only due to his military success, but also due to the psychological aspect of the war. Enemy soldiers reflected their fear of him onto the battlefield. Meanwhile, American soldiers, thanks to their trust in his sniper skills, were able to move more freely. This was one of the major factors contributing to him being known as the legend. Chris Kyle's title of the legend was not confined to the U.S. military. It gained widespread recognition around the world. His name, known in many battlefields, had a reassuring effect on both enemies and allies alike. Military circles in the U.S. and around the world began to view Kyle as one of the most skilled snipers of the war. This fame was solidified by the release of his autobiographical book American Sniper in 2012. The book detailed his heroism in the war and the impactful operations he carried out. American Sniper was met with great interest from both critics and the public. The book not only clearly conveyed the brutal nature of war and the challenges Kyle faced as a soldier, but also highlighted his achievements during his military career. The book became a worldwide bestseller and was adapted into a film in 2014 under the same title. Directed by Clint Eastwood, the film starred Bradley Cooper as Kyle and won several awards. This success further cemented Kyle's recognition as a legend and helped spread his name around the world. Chris Kyle's journey to becoming a legend wasn't limited to the peak of his military career. In addition to being a hero in war, he became a figure who carried the psychological, emotional, and human aspects of war. Every bullet he fired changed the course of battle, and every operation he carried out saved the lives of his comrades. As a soldier, he left a mark that would be remembered not only in the U.S. military but globally. Kyle became a name spoken with respect, and he continued to be known as the Legend. During the Iraq War, Chris Kyle demonstrated extraordinary courage and resilience, facing both physical and emotional challenges. He came close to death many times, sustained serious injuries, but each time overcame these hardships and returned to his duties. For him, war was not just a military mission but a challenge that tested the limits of human endurance. Serving in some of the most dangerous areas as a sniper involved more than just physical injuries. But Kyle's strength in overcoming every obstacle, along with his deep understanding of the human cost of war, made each injury not just a testament to his resilience, but a stark reflection of the war's true face. Kyle's first major injury occurred in 2008 while continuing his duties as a sniper. One day, while operating in a region with intense fighting, Kyle and his team were severely injured in an explosion. The blast caused damage to several parts of Kyle's body. For a brief moment, the thought that his life could be over crossed the minds of the soldiers. Despite the intense pain, Kyle found inner strength to keep fighting. After the explosion, he was rushed to the hospital. His injuries were serious and would require a long recovery period. However, Chris Kyle's character and warrior spirit were key factors that set him apart from other soldiers. After receiving treatment in the hospital, once he recovered, he was determined to return to duty as soon as possible. Despite his injuries, he maintained a positive attitude and went through an intensive rehabilitation process to regain his strength. He saw these challenges not as barriers but as another fight to overcome. In addition to physical injuries, Chris Kyle's challenges were not only physical but also intensely psychological. Due to the nature of war, soldiers are worn down both physically and mentally. Kyle had to carry the memories of the friends he lost and the unrelenting struggle with the enemy in his mind. The injuries were more than just physical pain. Each injury represented another loss, another painful memory. Yet despite all the difficulties of war, Kyle's mental strength and commitment to his military duties always remained at the forefront. The psychological effects of war sometimes strengthened him, but they also left deep emotional scars. Kyle was aware of the profound effects war had on soldiers. Despite his injuries, he knew that surviving and returning to duty was a success in itself. Each injury weakened him physically but strengthened him mentally. However, the psychological burden of war was gradually becoming a growing obstacle. After each physical injury, Chris Kyle mobilized all his strength to return to his previous health. However, each time, the challenges he faced became not only physically difficult but emotionally heavy. War involved more than just physical pain. It targeted the human soul, morale, yearnings, and fears. After every injury, Kyle also tried to heal emotionally. For him, mentally recovering was a battle of its own. Living with the memories of his fallen comrades, the loved ones he lost, and the moments when he neutralized hundreds of enemies, along with all the pain and burdens, made his internal struggle even harder. But every injury taught him to be stronger and to overcome difficulties. Sometimes his biggest battle wasn't just to survive but also to find the meaning of survival. Truly recovering for him wasn't just about physical healing. It was also a fight to heal from the mental wounds of war. After suffering a serious injury in 2008, Chris Kyle went through the recovery process and decided to return to duty. However, the challenges he faced during this time were not limited to just the injury he had suffered once. While continuing in combat, he could face another danger at any moment, and each mission came with the risk of death. Kyle always had constant motivation to return to the battlefield. Although he would suffer more injuries and pain in the years to come, he managed to return to the battlefield each time. Though he came close to death many times, he always got back up. His experience in battle made him carry out every new mission with greater determination than the last. During this period, Kyle went through some of the hardest tests both physically and emotionally. Although the physical burden of war grew heavier over time, Kyle's goal never changed: to protect the lives of American soldiers, alter the course of the war, and neutralize the enemy. By facing every aspect of war, Chris Kyle went through very tough times both physically and emotionally. However, his determination, resolve, and commitment to his mission gave him the strength to overcome these injuries. He had the mental strength to cope not only with the challenges of war, but with all the struggles in his life. Despite his injuries, returning to duty gave him not only a physical victory, but also a spiritual strength. At every stage of the war, each new injury made him a stronger and more determined warrior. The challenges Chris Kyle faced during the war revealed his strength, resilience, and how far human limits could be pushed. Every injury taught him a lesson, and by coming back every time, he earned the title of the Legend. When Chris Kyle returned from Iraq, he had to cope with not only the physical scars of war, but also its psychological effects. Having witnessed the brutal realities of war for years, losing friends and facing countless deaths, a soldier's soul could not easily erase the marks of war. Though Kyle had won numerous awards and medals as a hero, upon returning home, the emotional burdens and psychological trauma of war began to deeply affect his life. While he recalled the successes he achieved in war, the traumas he experienced and the horrific sights he saw gradually wore him down. The brutal reality of war left deep psychological scars on Chris Kyle upon his return. The years spent on the battlefield changed him both physically and mentally. After returning from the war, Kyle began showing symptoms of post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, a condition commonly seen in veterans who have endured severe trauma. PTSD often includes a combination of recurring memories, nightmares, sudden outbursts of anger, elevated anxiety levels, feelings of loneliness, and difficulty concentrating. Kyle tried to cope with this psychological battle he faced daily. He couldn't sleep at night and found it hard to focus on his daily tasks. The anxiety and nightmares from his combat experiences turned into a fight for his life. At the same time, he also experienced significant strains in his relationships with loved ones and family members. For him, losing friends in battle and then constantly remembering them felt like a threat, even within the safety of home. At times, the emotional struggles Kyle faced were far from the image of the calm, sharp sniper and soldier he had once been. Once a man who fought to save lives, he now fought with the fears and traumas inside him. The voices in his mind constantly reminded him of the deep wounds left by the war. He tried everything to return to his former self. He sought doctors, attended therapy, and relied on the support of his family. However, fully recovering from the effects of war proved to be an even more difficult process. When Chris Kyle returned home, he faced not only mental challenges, but also family difficulties. Beyond the medals and heroic titles he earned in the war, he was now just an ordinary man, struggling with the destructive effects of war. His wife, Taya Kyle, noticed that he was gradually internalizing the effects of war, and this became a significant source of stress in their marriage. When Chris Kyle returned home, he realized how difficult it was to adapt to normal life. For him, being at home and being with his family was not easy because the pain in his mind and the traumatic scars of war could surface at any moment. Taya made significant efforts to help him confront his past, encourage him to go to therapy, and constantly support him. However, as a soldier, Chris Kyle identified himself with his warrior identity, and not finding the same identity in civilian life overwhelmed him. The warrior within him struggled to find his place. The battlefield, in a sense, had been his home, but now he was not in that home. He felt like a stranger within the family. Despite this, Kyle tried to rise again with the support of his family and friends. However, the psychological burden of war and PTSD continued to affect his life like an ongoing journey. Looking back, the sights he had seen, the fear he had felt, and the losses he had experienced would always be a source of sorrow. Even though he had bravely joined the war, every new day meant confronting another nightmare in his mind. Chris Kyle tried to face this psychological burden on his own, but over time, he realized that this weight affected not only him, but everyone around him.
One day, he realized that he was not alone in experiencing these struggles, and many other veterans were going through similar situations. At this point, Chris Kyle thought that sharing his trauma with others could be healing for him and could
help others as well. Kyle decided that sharing his emotional and psychological struggles with others would be an essential step in his recovery process. He began talking to other veterans who were seeking help to overcome the mental effects of war and offering them moral support. At the same time, he worked with various organizations to raise awareness about PTSD and helped launch programs aimed at improving the mental health of former soldiers. This process gave him an opportunity to make peace with himself and help others. During this time, Kyle discovered that the scars left by war can remain permanent in a person's life. But facing those scars and sharing them with others could be a type of healing journey. He set aside his attachment to war and fought in another way for others, a psychological battle. After showing extraordinary courage and resilience throughout the war, Kyle faced a different kind of courage in the aftermath. True heroism is defined not only by successes on the battlefield, but also by the courage to face life's challenges. While trying to recover from the effects of war and cope with these difficulties, Kyle showed real heroism. In his internal battle and his efforts to help others, he dedicated his life in a different way. He was not just a soldier, but a person trying to erase the traces of war, a leader, and a figure who gave hope to others, leaving a lasting memory. Kyle's life was shaped by the extraordinary courage, determination, and heroism he demonstrated during his years in Iraq. However, the final years of his life told another story, showing just how strong of a person he was. As he worked to overcome the physical and psychological effects of war, Kyle focused on helping former soldiers and guiding them through their healing process. However, 2013 ended in an unexpected way. Kyle's death was another example of how war leaves lasting scars, not just in the external world but within people's inner worlds as well. In his final days, Kyle continued working to assist former soldiers with their mental health. In early 2013, he learned that a former friend, Eddie Ray Routh, a former soldier who had been struggling to overcome the psychological trauma of war, needed help. Routh had served in the U.S. Army but was experiencing difficulties coping with the psychological traumas caused by the war. Kyle returned to Texas to spend time with him, take him to the shooting range, and help him cope with his struggles. Kyle hoped that by spending time with Ruth, guiding him along a new path, he could assist in his healing. This intention demonstrated that Kyle was not just a soldier, but also a compassionate, empathetic individual. Kyle had experienced firsthand how devastating the effects of war could be, and as a former soldier, he had already realized that helping others was his mission. That day, Kyle and his friend Chad Littlefield were spending time at the shooting range with Routh. However, in the afternoon, Routh's psychological state suddenly deteriorated. After a while, Routh drew his weapon and shot both men. Kyle and his friend Chad Littlefield were brutally killed by a friend they had spent the previous day laughing with, talking to, and supporting. This event shocked the world. Kyle would be remembered not only as a hero, but also as a figure who tried to help others and highlighted the importance of mental health. Unfortunately, his life and struggle ended here. The death of Kyle was a tremendous loss, not only for his family but also for America and the entire world. Everyone was deeply affected by the heroic stories of Kyle's life and the admiration they felt for him. However, the tragic way he died sent shockwaves across the globe. The rapidly spreading news revealed that Kyle had lost his life at the hands of a former soldier he had helped in recent years. The American public, especially those who had known Kyle, either through battle or peace, struggled to come to terms with the loss. It underscored once again how long-lasting and deep the effects of war could be on individuals. Many veterans began to identify their own struggles with PTSD with Kyle's death, prompting a renewed conversation on how dangerous PTSD can become. Despite the countless medals, awards, and heroic titles Kyle had earned during his time in the war, his mission had always been to raise awareness of the psychological impacts of war. Unfortunately, his final days dramatically highlighted just how enduring the destructive effects of war could be. After Kyle's death, a significant step was taken to share the respect and heroism of his life with a wider audience. His 2012 book American Sniper which detailed his life and the challenges he faced during the war, gained massive popularity. The book quickly became a bestseller and garnered attention worldwide. American Sniper was considered a masterpiece, conveying the heroism of war, the human struggle, and the psychological difficulties faced by soldiers. In 2014, the film adaptation of the book was released. Directed by Clint Eastwood and starring Bradley Cooper, the film dramatized Chris Kyle's life and the impact of the war on him and those around him, while also shedding light on the devastating effects of war and the mental struggles of a soldier. The film was not only a commercial success but also won several prestigious awards. American Sniper did not just tell the story of a soldier, it also questioned the human drama behind war, examining how heroism and humanity could be intertwined. Chris Kyle's life was once again brought to the global stage through the film, and his influence was felt in the world of cinema for years to come. Chris Kyle's life will be remembered not only for the victories he achieved in war, but also for his post-war humanitarian work, his battle to cope with psychological challenges, and his efforts to assist other veterans. His story illuminated what it truly means to be a hero, the effects of war on individuals and the long-lasting impacts of war on humanity. Chris Kyle was not only one of the most successful snipers in the history of the U.S. military, but also became a figure who showed the human side of war. After Chris Kyle's death, all that remained was not only a hero but also a story that made us reflect on the complex nature of humanity and war. His death became a symbol highlighting the psychological, as well as physical effects of war. Chris Kyle, remembered as a legendary sniper and hero, also became a symbol of psychological battles, mental wounds, and the human struggle. His legacy will forever be remembered, shedding light on the balance between heroism and humanity, inspiring future generations.